Yes.
Do you think that a drug policy platform is the most effective means of creating incarceration reform?
Not necessarily, although
And if not, what?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I guess any kind of movement is going to consist of a lot of different components. You know, it's going to be a coalition. There are going to be different elements. And I guess everybody has to be pulling together. So I don't know a whole lot about immigration, for example. I just give this one example, okay? But right now, right at this moment, at this historical moment, I think something really interesting is going on with respect to the issue of immigration. I was talking to a distinguished law professor at Harvard. Her name is Loury, who was a career as a civil rights attorney when she was in practice, and then has gone into the academy and written important books that have had big influence. And you know, she's concerned about inequality, deeply concerned about social justice. But Loury, as a lot of other people, as I was just saying myself, is coming to think that, you know, litigation strategies is not the way to get social justice. You need more kind of action-oriented political strategies. And if you start thinking seriously about that, you realize that, you know, to really get this movement going, you're going to have to somehow find ways, you know, a narrative, a kind of way of framing and thinking about what you're doing that brings together many different strands, okay? So all these 2 million or 1.4 million, whatever that number was, of African-American kids that I had up there who have parents in prison, and then, you know, like advocacy on behalf of children, you know. The public health implications of the scale of incarceration and its concentrated effect, because what a prison is really a horrific place in many ways. I mean, it's a kind of, you know, this total confinement kind of thing that goes on inside of prisons, and then it spills over in the community. Anyway, that's one kind of. Drug policy is another kind. That's a piece of it, but it would only be a piece of it. And I mention immigration because I see people in the street. And as I was saying in the conversation with Loury, you know, the Mexican undocumented immigrant comes to work in the fields or the gardens or the homes. Maybe it's displacing the African-American unskilled worker in the Los Angeles labor market, at least giving them a run for their money, a lot of competition. As an economist, you just can't ignore the possibility that there could be this competition. But in fact, both of these population groups are in a way being exploited. Cheap labor really is the imperative there, and I mean, if you're pitting one against the other, you're not really looking in the right place for what the problem is. They're not enemies, they shouldn't be. The unskilled African-American, indigenous American laborer and the undocumented immigrant. You shouldn't be talking about he coming to take my job, because really they're competing for the crumbs down here at the bottom, and the money is being made by somebody else, and the benefits are being enjoyed by other people, including ourselves, who like to have fresh vegetables and fruits in the wintertime and all that. Somebody's got to pick that stuff and all of that. So the right way to frame this movement is to try to bring these forces together. Now, this Arizona immigration law, this is just as, you know, maybe this is an opportunity in disguise, right? I mean, because now the state would be mobilized against, quote unquote, the wetback, right? The state has already been mobilized against the quote unquote thug, right? Now we're going to mobilize the state against the wetback. Suppose we see these kinds of activities that we've seen in Arizona breaking out in other states and so forth. Why can't one be thinking about a national movement being organized in which interests from, you know, who are all being affected in this thing are somehow coming together? So I'm mumbling. I'm not really, I don't have a coherent plan. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I think there are going to have to be some meetings where some privileged white kids sit across the table from some people who are community workers in the hardest core of the urban areas, and they compare notes and they talk about how they can complement each other's activities, or what, you know, something. Somebody's got to organize this thing, and they got to get people talking to each other who didn't used to talk to each other before. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure.